Well, hello there, and welcome. How are we doing tonight? Are we excited? Are we excited for Story 21, Cinderella? I can't believe we're going to be listening to the original German version. The original German version. Dan, welcome on the stream on my personal page. Yeah, you won't be able to hear anything because I don't have any music set up. The holding screen is only something I've been doing for the past couple of days. Normally it's just straight in there, bang, straight into the story or after a bit of a talk. Thank you to those that are on the stream. It is much appreciated. If you do see me keep looking up here, it's because I'm looking at my screen, because I'm currently streaming on 3 separate sites at the same time, which is perfect, and all the streams seem to be great. Facebook fan page or business page, Facebook main page, and YouTube. So, all go. Hello there, Eamon. Welcome. The only thing I don't like about desktop streaming on Facebook is I can never see the exact number of people who have joined, and it certainly doesn't tell me, unless you actually speak up, who is watching. Which is, it's a shame. It's a shame. But for those that are brand new to the stream, because looking at this, there does seem to be quite a few on various sides. My name's Chris Kendall. I'm a British voice actor, and you most likely would have seen me around the place on social media or in real life. It really depends. And during this lockdown, I hope everybody is keeping safe. I decided to challenge myself and try and... I bought this book, which I thought would be absolutely great, to read stories to my kids. Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. Now, why on earth have all of my streams seem to have... Oh, no, they've caught up now. They've caught up, thank God. Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. Now, I would advise not reading these to children because they do contain some graphic scenes in terms of revenge, death, impaling, and stuff like that. So basically, it has all of the fairy tales that you know and love in the original formats by the German writers back in the... when was it? I think it was like the... I'm not even going to try and assume I know when these were actually written, because I will look like a fool without actually getting to the right page very quickly, which may take a little while. Hello, Mr. Myers. Welcome on my business page. It is a pleasure to have you here. So we're now at story 21, and they have been pretty comical, quite shocking, and most certainly not the standard stories that you would expect to hear. Because obviously these are the original texts, and with no holds barred in terms of the story and depiction and stuff like that, compared to what we do know. Like, for example, we've done 2 so far that we would recognise. We've done Rapunzel, and we've done Hansel and Gretel, and both of those were very slightly different to the more children-friendly or child-friendly stories that we know now. And what is so cool about this stream, and please do like, share, and subscribe, and if you are watching on YouTube, please do click that bell notification icon if you would like to be notified for any future videos that I do. You can also follow me on my fan page, my business page. I've got Twitter, Instagram, you name it, I'm on there. Do look up Chris Kendall VO. I will most likely appear on there, and do follow me on there. Right, okay, so the reason why I'm doing these is I'm challenging myself, and the challenge is this. I have never read any of these stories apart from the ones that I've already read on these lives. So when I am reading these to you, I am reading these for myself for the first time. Therefore, it is a challenge because it's not pre-scripted. These are all completely live. And garnered quite an interest, which I'm really quite happy about, because you guys are just as excited and entertained about these stories as what I am. And it really does. I mean, I've got some that are actually have this now as part of their bedtime routine. There are some that are laying in bed now listening to this as their bedtime story. So thank you very much to yous for listening and using me for your drift off stories. Makes you feel like a child again, doesn't it? But if you are a child, you shouldn't be watching this stream. Only kidding. Parental guidance and advised. Right, okay, so on to the reason why you are here. You want to hear the original Cinderella. The wife of a rich man fell sick, and she felt that her end was drawing near. She called her only daughter into the bedside and said, "Dear child, be good and pious, and then the good God will always protect you, and I will look down on you from heaven and be near you." Then she closed her eyes and departed. Every day the maiden went out to her mother's grave and wept. And she remained pious and good. When the winter came, the snow spread a white sheet over the grave, and when the spring sun had drawn it off again, the man had taken another wife. The woman brought two daughters into the house with her, who were beautiful and fair of face, but vile and black of heart. Now began a bad time for the poor stepchild. Just to add a note there, it states that they were both beautiful and fair of face, yet it's always known as the ugly sisters in many of the Western sort of scripts. Black of heart, now a bad time for the poor stepchild. "It is the stupid goose that sit on the parlour with us," said they. "He who wants to eat bread must earn it. Out with the kitchen, wench." They took her pretty clothes away from her, put an old grey bedgown on her, and give her wooden shoes. "Just look at that proud princess, how decked out she is," they cried, and laughed, and led her into the kitchen. There she had to do the hard work from morning till night, get up before daybreak, carry water, light fires, cook and wash. Besides this, the sisters did her every imaginable injury. They mocked her and emptied her peas and lentils into the ashes, so that she was forced to sit and pick them out again. In the evening, when she had worked till she was weary, she had no bed to go to, but had to sleep by the fireside in the ashes. And since on that account she always looked dusty and dirty, they called her Cinderella. That makes sense. Cinders of a fire. Cinderella. It happened that the father was once going to the fair, and he asked his two stepdaughters what he should bring back for them. "Beautiful dresses," said one. "Pearls and jewels," said the other. "And you, Cinderella," said he, "what will you have?" "Father breaks off for me the first branch which knocks against your hat on the way home." No, sorry. "Father, break off the first branch which knocks against your hat on the way home." So he bought beautiful dresses, pearls and jewels for his two stepdaughters, and on his way home he was riding through a green thicket. A hazel twig brushed against him and knocked off his hat. Then he broke it off the branch and took it with him. When he reached home, he gave his stepdaughters the thing which they had wished for, and to Cinderella he gave the branch from the hazel bush. One second, I just need to adjust this mic. There we go. The branch from the hazel bush. Cinderella thanked him, went to her mother's grave and planted the branch onto it, and wept so much that the tears fell down and watered it. And it grew, however, it became a handsome tree. Thrice a day Cinderella went and sat beneath it and wept and prayed, and a little white bird always came on the tree, and if Cinderella expressed a wish, the bird threw down to her what she had wished for. It happened, however, that the king appointed a festival which was to last 3 days, and to which all beautiful young girls in the country were invited, in order that his son might choose himself a bride. When the two stepsisters heard that they were to apologies, let me just. When the two stepsisters heard that they too were to appear amongst the number, they were delighted, called Cinderella and said, "Comb our hair for us, brush our shoes, and fasten our buckles, for we are going to the festival at the king's palace." Cinderella obeyed, but wept because she too would have liked to go with them to the dance, and begged her stepmother to allow her to do so. "You go, Cinderella," said she. You are dusty and dirty and would go to a festival. You have no clothes and shoes and yet would dance." As, however, Cinderella went on asking, the stepmother at last said, "I have emptied a dish of lentils into the ashes for you. If you have picked them out again in 2 hours, you shall go with us." The maiden went through the back door into the garden, and called, "You tame pigeons, you turtle doves, and all you birds beneath the sky, come and help me pick the good into the pot, the bad into the crop." Then 2 white pigeons came in by the kitchen window, and afterwards the turtle doves, and at last all the birds beneath the sky came whirring and crowding in, and alighted amongst the ashes. And the pigeons nodded with their heads and began to pick, 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 and the rest began to also pick, 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 and gathered all the good grains into the dish. Hardly had 1 hour passed before they had finished, and all flew out again. Then the girl took the dish to her stepmother, and was glad, and believed that now she would be allowed to go with them to the festival. But the stepmother said, "No, Cinderella, you have no clothes and you cannot dance. You would only be laughed at." And as Cinderella wept at this, the stepmother said, "If you can pick 2 dishes of lentils out of the ashes for me in 1 hour, you shall go with us." And she thought to herself, that she most certainly cannot do. When the stepmother had emptied the 2 dishes of lentils amongst the ashes, the maiden went through the back door into the garden and cried, "You tame pigeons, you turtle doves, all of you birds under heaven, come help me to pick the good into the pot, the bad into the crop." Then 2 white pigeons came into the kitchen window, and afterwards the turtle doves, and at length all the birds beneath the sky came whirring and crowding in, and alighted amongst the ashes. And the doves nodded with their heads and began to pick, 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 pick. And the others also began to pick, 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 and gathered all the good seeds into dishes, and before half an hour was over, they had already finished. And all flew out again. Then the maiden carried the dishes to the stepmother, and was delighted, and believed that she might now go with them to the festival. But the stepmother said, "All this will not help you. You cannot go with us, for you have no clothes, and cannot dance. We should be ashamed of you." With this she turned her back on Cinderella, and hurried away with her 2 proud daughters. As no one was now home, Cinderella went to her mother's grave beneath the hazel tree, and cried, "Shiver and quiver, little tree, silver and gold threw down to me." Then the bird threw a gold and silver dress down to her, and slippers embroidered with silk and silver. She put on the dress with all speed and went to the festival. Her stepsisters and stepmother, however, did not know her, and thought she must be a foreign princess, for she looked beautiful in the golden dress. They never once thought of Cinderella, and believed that she was sitting at home in the dirt picking lentils out of the ashes. The prince went to meet her, took her by the hand, and danced with her. He would dance with no other maiden, and never let go of her hand. And if anyone else came to invite her, he said, "This is my partner." She danced till it was evening, and she wanted to go home, but the king's son said, "I will go with you and bear you company." For he wished to see whom the beautiful maiden belonged. She escaped from him, however, and sprang into She escaped from him, however, and sprang into the pigeon house. The king's son waited until his father came, and they told him that the strange maiden had leapt into the pigeon house. The old man thought, "Can it be Cinderella?" And they had to bring him an axe and a pickaxe that he might hew the pigeon house to pieces, but no one was inside. And when he got home, Cinderella lay in the dirty clothes amongst the ashes, and a dim little oil lamp was burning on the mantelpiece. For Cinderella had quickly jumped down from the back of the pigeon house and ran to the little hazel tree. And there she had taken off her beautiful clothes and lay them on the grave, and the bird had taken them away again. And then she placed herself in the kitchen amongst the ashes in her grey gown. Next day, when the festival began afresh, and her parents and the stepsisters had gone once more, Cinderella went to the hazel tree and said, "Shiver and quiver, my little tree, silver and gold throw down over me." Then the bird threw down a much more beautiful dress than the preceding day. And when Cinderella appeared at the festival in this dress, everyone was astonished at her beauty. The king's son had waited until she came, and instantly took her by the hand and danced with no one but her. When others came and invited her, he said, "She is my partner." When evening came, she wished to leave, and the king's son followed her and wanted to see in which house she went. But she sprang away from him and into the garden behind the house. There stood a beautiful tall tree on which hung the most magnificent pears. She clambered so nimbly between the branches like a squirrel that the king's son did not know where she had gone. He waited until his father came and said to him, "The strange maiden has escaped from me, and I believe she has climbed up there to the pear tree." The father thought, "Can it be Cinderella?" and had an axe brought to him and cut down the tree, but no one was on it. And when they got into the kitchen, Cinderella lay there amongst the ashes, as usual, for she had jumped down on the other side of the tree, had taken the beautiful dress to the bird on the little hazel tree, and put her grey gown on. On the third day, when the parents and sisters had gone away, Cinderella went once more to her mother's grave and said to the little tree, "Shiver and quiver, my little tree, silver and gold throw down over me." And now the little bird threw down to her a dress which was more splendid and magnificent than any she had had yet, and the slippers were golden, and when she went to the festival in the dress, no one knew how to speak for astonishment. The king's son danced with her only, and if anyone invited her to dance, he said, "She is my partner." When the evening came, Cinderella wished to leave, and the king's son was anxious to go with her, but she escaped from him so quickly that he could not follow her. The king's son had, however, used a stratagem. Oh, I like it. Word for today, stratagem. The king's son had, however, used a stratagem, and had caused the whole staircase to be smeared with pitch, and there, when she ran down, had the maiden's left slipper which remained sticking to the king's... had the maiden's left slipper which remained sticking. The king's son picked it up, and it was small and dainty and golden. Next morning he brought it to the father and said to him, "No one shall be my wife but whose foot fits this golden slipper." Then the two sisters were glad, for they had pretty feet. The eldest went with the shoe into her room and wanted to try it on, and her mother stood by, but she could not get her big toe into it, and the shoe was too small for her. Then her mother gave her a knife and said, "Cut off the toe. When you are queen, you will have no more need to go on foot." The maiden cut off her toe, forced the foot into the shoe, swallowed the pain, and went out to the king's son. Then he took her on his horse and as his bride and rode away. What? Then he took her on his horse and as his bride and rode away with her. They were, however, obliged to pass the grave, and there on the hazel tree sat two pigeons and cried, turn and peep, there's blood within the shoe. The shoe is too small for her. The true bride waits for you." 1 second, guys. Just going to pull the comments down. Hello, Stacey. Apologies to those that are in the middle of listening. Facebook on here doesn't automatically scroll for me, so I'm just trying to move it down. The true bride waits for you. Then he looked at her foot and saw how the blood was streaming from it. He turned his horse round and took a false bride home again. Good for him. And said she was not the true one, and that the other sister was to put the shoe on. Then this one went into her chamber and got her toes safely into the shoe, but her heel was too large. So her mother gave her a knife and said, "Cut a bit of your heel. When you are queen, you will have no more need to go on foot." The maiden cut a bit off her heel, forced her foot into the shoe, swallowed the pain, and went out to the king's son. He took her on his horse as a bride, and rode away with her. But when they passed by the hazel tree, 2 little pigeons sat on it and cried, turn and peep, there's blood within the shoe. The shoe is too small for her, the true bride waits for you." He looked down at her foot, and saw how the blood was running out of her shoe, and how it had stained her white stocking. Then he turned his horse and took the false bride home again. "This is also not the right one," said he. "Have you no other daughter?" "No," said the man. "There is still a little stunted kitchen wench which my late wife left behind, but she cannot She cannot possibly be the bride." The king's son said he was to send her up to him, but the mother answered, "Oh no, she is much too dirty, she cannot show herself." He absolutely insisted on it, and Cinderella had to be called. She first washed her hands and face clean, and then went and bowed down before the king's son, who gave her the golden shoe. Then she seated herself on a stool, drew her foot out of her heavy wooden shoe, and put it into the slipper, which fit like a glove. And when she rose up and the king's son looked at her face, he recognized the beautiful maiden whom he had danced with, and cried, "That is the true bride!" The stepmother and the 2 stepsisters were terrified and became pale with rage. He, however, took Cinderella on his horse and rode away with her. As they passed by the hazel tree, the 2 white doves cried, turn and peep, no blood in this shoe. The shoe is not too small for her, the true bride rides with you." And when they had cried that, the 2 came flying down and placed themselves on Cinderella's shoulders, one on the right and one on the left, and remained sitting there. When the wedding with the king's son was celebrated, the 2 false sisters came and wanted to get into favour with Cinderella and share her good fortune. When the betrothed couple went to the church, the elder was at the right side of the younger at the left, and the pigeons pecked out one eye from each of them. Afterwards, as they came back, the elder was at the left and the younger was at the right, and then the pigeons pecked out the other eye of each. And thus, for their wickedness and falsehood, they were punished with blindness as long as they lived. Well then, I did tell you this would not be the standard Cinderella that you're used to. What are your thoughts of that one then? The original Cinderella, was it worth the wait? Was it worth the wait? Let me know on the chat. What did you think of that story? It's definitely not at all what I was expecting to hear. And yeah, there was a few tongue twisters, Eamon. I've had one of those days anyway, so it was quite entertaining. I did like that. Do remember to like, share, and subscribe, and let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Let me just have a look at my phone. Nope. Everyone's quite happy with the version. They were expecting it, were you? The only problem is, with these Facebook Lives, Facebook takes about 10 seconds from the point of me asking a question to you actually posting something and me seeing it. So if I do go silent for a little bit, it's because of that. So when I'm waiting to see if there's a response that I can respond to, it's not really real time, which is very anticlimactic and very disappointing. But yeah, hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was what you were looking for. Again, that was one of the fairy tales from the original German texts of the Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales book. Not advisable to read to children at bedtime, unless you want them up halfway through the night. It's been a pleasure having you here. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and let others know about these stories. I'm trying to do one every night if I can. There are about 230 of these stories, I do believe, and an additional 10 folklore tales. What's on tomorrow? Bear with me a second. And there are additional 10 as well. We are at number 21, so that's 21 days I have done lives. And so far, this has been the best sort of setup, doing it on the main Facebook, the Facebook business page, and YouTube at the same time, so that we're not missing out on anybody. Originally, Facebook was quite horrendous to try and get to work correctly, but now, with me building the retransmission server, it's made things a lot easier. Right, tomorrow we have the riddle. Riddle me this, Batman. I don't think it's a Riddler. I don't think it's Batman, unfortunately. No, it's the riddle. But, again, this is to do with another prince. There's a lot of princes and beautiful maidens and beautiful princesses and stuff in this. And if I remember correctly, yes, I do. Rapunzel, the prince, when he jumped out of the window, according to this story, he landed in the thorns below and blinded himself by the thorns poking his eyes out. There seems to be sort of a blindness trait in this as well. Anyway, I digress. It was an enjoyable story. I did enjoy reading that to you, so thank you very much for taking part and joining with me. Do let others know about these streams, and if there is anything you would like me to read after we finish these, or if you would like me to go into a different direction or possibly look at a different sort of live, do also let me know. Drop me a message on Facebook or on YouTube, and just discuss whatever you're thinking. Because I'm here. I'm trying to create content, and so far, I am loving this. Loving it. Remember, it's Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales in a beautiful Gothic-looking book. Sits in my studio gracefully upon a shelf next to Edgar Allan Poe's complete works, which also looks really Gothic and beautiful. Anyway, most importantly, thank you very much for joining. Enjoy the rest of your evening, daytime, nighttime, and most importantly, stay safe, everybody. And I'll see you tomorrow.